So a couple of days ago, Ilia Topuria posted on Twitter saying that his fight camp has started, and many people believe that he's going to be fighting on International Fight Week because the dates kind of align from when his camp started and when that event's going to take place. But the real question is, who is Ilia Topuria going to be fighting? Well, people are saying that Ilia Topuria is going to be fighting for a title, so that kind of leaves two options. Either he's going to fight Islam Makachev for the lightweight belt, or he's going to fight Charles Oliveira for either the interim belt or just the vacant title after Islam moves up to welterweight. And considering on the same day that Ilia Topuria posted this tweet, Charles Oliveira announced that he will be making his return to the lightweight division, it's pretty safe to assume that Charles Oliveira is going to be fighting Ilia Topuria for the vacant title belt. And I think that Charles Oliveira is going to win this fight. Now, before you call me a casual and I know nothing about the sport, a couple of weeks ago I actually did a poll on my channel asking who would win in a fight at lightweight. And a majority of the votes agreed with me that Charles Oliveira is going to win this fight. But to be fair, when I first heard about this fight possibly happening a couple of weeks ago, I was pretty scared for Charles Oliveira. I was like, oh shoot, Charles Oliveira is going to get knocked out by Ilia Topuria. But then I started to think about it, and I kept thinking about it, and now I think there's a higher chance that Charles Oliveira beats Ilia Topuria than there is of Ilia Topuria beating Charles Oliveira, and here's why. First, let's just state the obvious. Charles Oliveira is a lot bigger than Ilia Topuria. He's taller, just kind of has a bigger build, and he can fight at range. He has a lot more range than Ilia Topuria. Plus, the last time Ilia Topuria went up to lightweight, he got head kicked and almost knocked out by Jai Herbert, and Jai Herbert is no Charles Oliveira. To be fair for Ilia Topuria, that was 4 years ago, and he took it on short notice. So let's just say he slipped up, got head kicked, he survived, and ended up knocking out Jai Herbert. It's okay, it happens to everyone. But believe it or not, Ilia Topuria actually had a lot of trouble with Bryce Mitchell in their fight that they had. And Bryce Mitchell had COVID, and he took that fight on short notice. So Ilia Topuria should have had an easier time with him than he did. Bryce Mitchell front kicked Ilia Topuria in the face 2 times in that fight. Are you telling me that Charles Oliveira wouldn't be able to do that exact same move with much greater effect? And he took Bryce Mitchell to the second round in that fight. Do you really think Bryce Mitchell leaves the first round with Charles Oliveira? No. Charles Oliveira would either knock him out in the first round, like he did to Bellerin Derouche. I messed that name up, but let's move on. Or he will submit him just like he did to Justin Gaethje in the first round. But again, that fight was a while ago and Ilia Topuria has gotten better. But I don't really see any version of Charles Oliveira losing to Bryce Mitchell or struggling that much against Bryce Mitchell. And don't worry guys, I'm not delusional. I know that Ilia Topuria has more than enough power to absolutely flatline Charles Oliveira if they fight. But I actually think that Charles Oliveira is going to be harder to knock out in this fight than a lot of people think. And here's why. Ilia Topuria gets majority of his knockouts when he has his opponent's back towards the cage. He'll back them up the entire fight, and then when they have nowhere to run, that's when he gets the highlight knockout. But he's not going to be able to do that as easily as he's been able to in the past with Charles Oliveira. Ilia Topuria has been able to do that easily because he's fighting these guys who aren't known for their power. He's fighting Max Holloway. He's fighting Alex Volkanovski. He's fighting these people who are point fighters. They're not really known for their one-punch power. The only person he's fought with power is Josh Emmett. And Josh Emmett went to decision with Ilia Topuria. He's the only one that's been able to do that. And you want to know how? He was playing bowl to bowl with Ilia Topuria. He was moving forward and not backwards. And Charles Oliveira actually has knockout power. Ilia knows this. So Ilia isn't going to be as loosey-goosey because he's not fighting Max Holloway. He's not fighting these guys who can just out of nowhere knock him out. But Charles Oliveira will be able to just knock him out of nowhere. But just to be clear, I'm not saying that Charles Oliveira is going to be able to jump into the pocket and start swinging with Ilia Topuria. I am not saying that. I know that if Charles Oliveira does that, he's going to get knocked out. He's just going to. But when Charles Oliveira fought Michael Chandler, we saw a different Charles Oliveira. We saw a patient Oliveira, one that picks his shots and isn't rushing to get knocked down like he did when he was a champion. He would rush towards his people and they would knock him down. He doesn't really do that anymore. He's going to be way more patient because he wants that belt. And he doesn't do it much anymore, but Ilia Topuria also overswings a lot of his punches. Again, he doesn't do it as much as he nearly used to, but he does overswing sometimes. And again, he's able to get away with it because he's fighting Bryce Mitchell, he's fighting Volkanovski, and he's fighting Max Holloway. He's not fighting these guys who can quickly counter and wobble him with a shot. I've also been seeing a lot of people say that Charles Oliveira has fallen off, but if you think about it, he actually hasn't. He's just not as aggressive as he used to be in the past. Let's think about it. His last 2 losses in the last couple of years have been Islam, and that's Islam, and Arman Tsarukyan, which he barely lost that fight with Arman Tsarukyan. Charles Oliveira arguably won that fight, and he just really hasn't fallen off like a lot of people have been saying. And let's not pretend that these two are anywhere near each other in the level of their grappling skills. They could be, but I also highly likely doubt that they are. Charles Oliveira has been doing jiu-jitsu his entire life, and we haven't even seen Ilia Topuria use his grappling against anyone high level. He used it against Bryce Mitchell, but that was after hurting him bad on the feet. We saw him use it against Max Holloway, and what happened? Max Holloway stood up immediately. Ilia Topuria is out here saying that he's going to be able to submit Islam Makachev with Islam's favorite submission. But I don't know. I feel like if you have any type of brain cells going on up here, you have to take that with a grain of salt. We haven't seen Ilia Topuria use his grappling against anyone high level. We're kind of just taking his word for it. And to be fair, his word does mean a lot. He said he was going to knock out Volkanovski. He did. He said he was going to knock out Max Holloway. And he did. But also, of course he's going to say that. He's fighting these guys. Of course he's going to say he can submit Khabib, when most likely he probably can't. Charles Oliveira is much bigger than Ilia Topuria and is just longer. He's going to have the grappling advantage. So if he is having trouble up on the feet with Ilia Topuria, which he might have some trouble with Ilia on the feet, but he can just take down Ilia and then probably submit Ilia Topuria. If you 100% confidently say that Ilia Topuria could submit Islam Makachev, you're kind of just exposing yourself as an Ilia fanboy who doesn't really look at the facts. I mean, if you believe Ilia Topuria can submit Islam Makachev, then you might as well believe that Jubilee could submit Khabib. I'm just saying.
कोई डिफरेंस नहीं है. फर्स्ट राउंड सर्वाइव करना, सेकंड राउंड में नॉकआउट मार सकता हूँ, मैं सबमिट कर सकता हूँ खबीब को, मैं कुछ भी कर सकता हूँ.
But in the summary, Charles Oliveira is just bigger, longer. He has knockout power, which Ilia Topuria isn't used to fighting people with knockout power. And Charles Oliveira is going to have the advantage in the grappling. It's going to happen. If Ilia Topuria out-grapples Charles Oliveira, I will be very, very surprised. But let me know what you think. Do you think Charles Oliveira is going to be able to beat Ilia Topuria? And if you made it this far in the video and you're a Charles Oliveira fan, like the video and comment down below. We need to rise as the Oliveira fan base, because like I said earlier, those Ilia Topuria fans are toxic as hell, and they're going to be at my throat. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video. If you liked it and want to see more, I have a video on how I think Ilia Topuria will be humbled at lightweight, and that kind of ties in together with this video. And I also have a video on how I how I know John Jones has been to a Diddy party. I have some evidence and I have some proof. Go watch that video. And that's going to be it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.